Hi, this is Rachel from Little Bird Quilting, and in this video we're going to be creating our yellow butterfly block. This block is made of yellow fabric. We have a solid yellow as well as a textured yellow with our gray background, and this block is 16.5 by 16.5 unfinished, and we're going to need to make 5 of those for our whole quilt. So to make this block, what we need is 6 gray squares. It's our background. They're 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. We need 2, and this is my textured yellow. I need 2 of those that are 4.5 by 4.5. Then I need a textured yellow that is 6 7/8 by 6 7/8, and then a background 6 7/8 by 6 7/8. And this is what we're going to be using to make our half square triangles. And this we're going to be sewing around the outer edge and then slicing in half. We haven't actually done this technique before. That's 4 at a time of half square triangles. Then we need 1 of our solid yellow that's 4 7/8 by 4 7/8, and 1 background piece that is 4 7/8 by 4 7/8. Then we need 4 solid yellow that are 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches, and then our background we need 4 that are 2.5 by 2.5. I'm doing it a little differently today just because, I really don't think you guys need to watch me sew this 4 patch together. So this is going to be our 2 4 patches that we need. They're ready to go. They're the same. Then we have this would be our half square triangles that are the solid yellow. So we would stack these on top of each other, and we would sew on both sides of the line and then cut on the line. And that would give us 2 half square triangles that have a yellow solid half and a gray on the other half. Then these pieces are our solid squares. This is going to be the one that we're going to sew today just because it's a new technique. We've never actually made half square triangles this way before. So I am lining up my fabric right sides together, and to make 4 half square triangles at the same time, I'm going to be sewing along the outer edge 1/4 inch. So let me go ahead and get this started. And I'm hoping that, having some of the pieces partially sewn will cut down on the video time there. They seem to be a little long for me. I know that when I watch a video, I usually 10 minutes is about my attention span. So let's see, we got a couple more sides to go. And I'm just sewing around the entire outer edge of these squares. And this is going to be our last one. And now that we've done that, we're going to take our ruler and we're going to cut an X. We're going to cut diagonally on both directions. So there's that direction. And then we're going to cut that direction. And that gives us 4 half square triangles that, once they've been cut, are 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. Okay, so I already have those ready to go and press. So we're going to go ahead and lay out our block, how it's going to be completed. And I tend to write on my fabric. This is a friction pen, so when I iron it, it goes away. But it just helps me keep everything straight, especially when I'm, have several stacks of, if I have a stack of 4 that are 4.5, and then I have a stack of 4 or 6 that are 4 7/8. Visually you can't really tell those apart. So I tend to try and make them look a little different. Okay, so then he goes there, Then we're going to have 2 solid pieces. It's like a little puzzle. Then he goes there. And then I'm going to have to push that iron up so I can get everything in the right place. This kind of looks like a little tulip to me in the corners. I don't know the official name of this block. I'm sure it has one. I've seen it many times. I think it looks like a butterfly, so I tend to call it a butterfly block. Put him right there. So now that we have this all laid out, I'm going to sew all of my pieces together in sets of 2. So let's go ahead and get started. Get those edges lined up. And I always like to start sewing at the side that has a seam at it, if I have a choice. And make sure you have your machine set at 1/4 inch. And I am going to, let's see, you could chain piece these, but I was going to, but then I was just thinking I probably would get them mixed up. So I'm going to do them 2 at a time and then open them back up so I can keep everything straight. I have in the past, as I know you guys have seen, sewn the wrong edge together. But get this one. That one slipped a little bit, so my seam isn't as straight as I'd like it to be. We'll see how bad that affects it as we put it all together. Then we'll do this one. And I am a little excited. Our son moved out, so I now have his bedroom. I'm going to be moving my sewing in there. That's going to be happening this next week. So the next video, we will be in a different room of the house there, which is going to be exciting because it's going to have a lot more light, natural light. Where I'm at right now, don't have any windows in this part of the basement, but we'll be moving, and that's going to be really nice. It gives me a little more space. I have my sewing room right now is in the basement of our house, which fortunately is a finished basement. And I have a lot of sewing stuff. I have a long arm here behind me, and then I also have a multi-needle embroidery machine, which I think within the next few weeks we're going to be doing a video with the 10 needle. What have we got going on? He said my thread broke. Let's see. He did not know what was going on. We got that fixed. I don't use my embroidery machine as much as I'd like to. It's really just, I don't have time to do everything that I want to do. I have all these neat things to play with. I do long arming the most just because that's what I do as a business. So here we have all of our pieces sewed together in sets of 2. Now we're going to go ahead and sew them into quadrants, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if I wasn't doing this in front of the camera right now, I would press all of these just because they would lie a little bit flatter. But I'm going to nest my seams together in that center section, and I'm going to start at one end, because pressing as you go will make your block look better visually, just because it'll square up easier because everything is already lying flat, instead of you having to try and get the fabric to go where you want it to go once you've already added all these seams to it. he will be just fine. Then let's get these two together. We're going to start at this end. Oh, yep, I knew something didn't sound right when he started sewing. He came out of the upper looper. Get him rethreaded real quick. Oops, just pulled it right out again. There we go. Let's start that again. Sometimes when I start sewing a little too vigorously to start with, it just tends to fly out of that upper looper. Let's get to our middle section. We're going to line up this end down here. That's going to be our second section. Let's get this one done. And I'm pressing my seams, even though I haven't pressed them with iron. I am folding them toward the blocks that don't have seams, the solid pieces of fabric. So like I pressed him, this seam is going towards him, and this seam is going towards this piece. The pieces that don't have any seams in them. Let's get that one done. There's that piece. And that writing will go away. Like I said earlier, that's a friction pen. That's no big deal. Let's get these nested together. And one thing, if you find that all of your blocks just tend to be just a 16th or an 18th inch too small, something you can try doing is, instead of pressing your seams to one side or the other, if you open up your seams and press them all open, your block will lay a little flatter, and it'll also give you a few, just a hair more, it'll be a hair larger. And that's just because the fabric doesn't have to lay over that seam. But the one thing is, if you open your seams, make your stitch length that you're sewing your blocks together with a little bit smaller, just so it makes a secure seam, since that seam is going to be open. But that'll give you, a little more size if you always find that your blocks are just a little bit too small. Let's put in this bottom section together. There's our bottom half. And now we're going to put this top half together. We're going to sew all the way to the middle section, and I'm going to line up this side because he's not lined up very well. And there's our top half. And this is where I'm going to make sure that everything, I don't want to just pull that. He might be attached to something somewhere and it might need to stay. So let's see. Oh, it looks fine. Okay, so now we're going to sew these two together. And I'm going to have this seam going this way and this seam going the opposite, just so I can nest them together. And if you were always pressing them towards that solid block, all of the seams should come together the opposite directions, because there's always it rotates back and forth from a solid block of fabric to a block of fabric with a seam. Get that middle one lined up. And one more point to sew to. Line up that last edge, which seems to be a little off, but let's see how bad it is. It might be okay. So one thing with when you're sewing fast, you can lose a little more points. And there we go. There's our finished block. I call this a butterfly block. I tend to think it looks sort of like a butterfly. I don't actually, it's not a butterfly, but the center section, and these I would consider the wings. So this has been our 4th block in our Big Block Quilt series. By now, everyone, I'm hoping, has had a chance to take a look at the layout at littlebirdquilting.com. If you haven't, you can check that out there. It also gives you the yardage. And don't forget, you need to make 5 of these blocks. And don't forget to like and subscribe below. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.